Thanks everyone for your patience, I really appreciate it. This is the Nashoba Regional School Committee, October 26, 2016, regular school committee meeting. I am calling the meeting to order at 6:07 p.m. The first item on the agenda is citizens' comments, and I know that we do have a citizens' comment. So like we do every meeting before we hear citizens' comments, I want to remind anyone who's willing to come and chat with us that we've got two policies that guide us here. I'm gonna not go through the policies, obviously, but each speaker has 3 minutes to share with us their thoughts. I want to remind you that your thoughts and your comments need to be directed to me. We will not be able to get into a conversation on this, but based on what your comments are, we'll decide if it's something that we need to take up later on, or it goes to the administration, or perhaps you're just sharing your thoughts with us. We cannot allow any discussion about a student or an individual that works in the district, or anyone who represents the district, including the school committee. And you can certainly ensure that you give us your point of view, and we are more than willing to hear what you have to say. So I think now that I've done that, we've got a citizen's comment, so feel free to come on up if you'd like.
Sure.
And let us know your name and town.
My name's Herb Cabral. I live in Bolton. I'm here because I have a 21-year-old autistic. My son is autistic. He is currently in the Nashoba School District. He will turn 22 April 14th. Typically what happens when someone turns 22, a disabled person turns 22, they get DDS funding to pick up their day program. In the case of this year's turning 22 budget for DDS, they have run out of funding that was appropriated. 7-point-something million were appropriated.
Across the state?
They're out.
Okay.
So there are 900 plus students that are in the state that will have no funding, basically, for those programs. So as Joe turns 22 in April, so he would basically, we went to DDS to initiate our Turn 22 program. We were told there was no funding. We were encouraged to be creative, and they were saying the option is for him to go home from April to July and wait for July's 2018 fiscal year budget to kick in. Anyone that's remotely familiar with autism will realize that would cause both skill and social regression while he was sitting home kind of waiting around. So as opposed to that, I'm trying to be creative in how we approach that April to June timeframe. I contacted the school district to see if it was possible to keep him in the school system as opposed to sitting home doing nothing. And basically the bottom line, after a couple of backs and forths, was that an attorney decided that was not a good decision for the district. I'm here today to ask you to take another hard look at that, see if we can't be a little bit more creative and engage us as a family as opposed to wave an attorney's letter in our face.
I really appreciate you bringing that information in. I think what I'll do is we'll have a conversation with the superintendent, and I can't promise you anything. I can't overrule the superintendent, but we certainly will have.
I'm not looking for promises. I'm looking for more to be engaged and to have a dialogue back and forth with the district as opposed to no dialogue and a letter waived and attorney's letter waived back. We say no.
All right. So why don't we take this under advisement, and thank you for bringing it to our attention. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, do we have any other citizens' comments? No. All right. So, Nick Mellis, a student representative, you have a report out for us.
Yes. The golf team placed third at the league meet last week, 9th overall in the Central Mass this week. Cross-country teams will compete in the Mid-Watch League Championship on Thursday. The varsity game cheerleading teams each placed first in the Continental Invitational over the weekend. Boys soccer improved 5-8-3 with a big win over Groton Dunstable. The girls soccer teams is now 10-3-3 and secured the league's title. The volleyball team improved 14-4, captured the league title, and are undefeated in the league. The field hockey team improved 11-2-3 and earned a share of the league in the title on Monday night in a hard-fought battle with Marlborough. The football team improved 4-3 with a big win over Shepherd Hill. Football hosts Westboro at home this Friday for a homecoming game. The football, volleyball, field hockey, and girls soccer teams qualified for the postseason. This week, during Nashoba's activity period, which happens, it's a block scheduled in the middle of the day for things like this. Nashoba took part in participating in Bullying Prevention Month. Students watched a video about how bullying can affect someone and what you can do to prevent bullying. Stand up for a person being bullied. All you need to do is help one other person in a time of need that can have a lasting impact. This week is Nashoba Spirit Week. Tomorrow is Color Day. Freshmen in gold, sophomores in black, juniors in white, and seniors in green. Friday is Nashoba Spirit Day. Be sure to wear any Nashoba attire you have acquired over the years. The homecoming dance is on Saturday, October 29th from 6:30 to 10 p.m. The dance is fall themed. Nashoba's Amnesty International Club is looking for new members. They meet at 2:30 on Tuesdays in the cafeteria. If students are interested, see Mr. Ettinger, the advisor and health teacher at Nashoba. The Nashoba School newspaper is now available in the Media Center. And it looks like this. It's also available in the cafeteria and main office. Be sure to stay up to date on everything Nashoba. The National Honor Society is running a fundraiser for Toys for Tots. They are collecting new and gently used toys until December 9th. The donations boxes are located inside the front office, in the main doors, and in the Media Center. The boxes will be there during parent-teacher conferences, and any donations would be greatly appreciated. Last week was Nashoba's Public College Fair and Senior Financial Aid Night. There, students and families were able to learn more about college and how the college process works. Finally, on Friday, November 4th, there will be no school, as well as on Monday, November 7th, which is an early release. This is due to parent-teacher conferences. Also, on Tuesday, November 8th, there will be no school because of elections.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Nick?
Not a question. I just want to say I did retweet the list for Spirit Week, so if anyone's following me, you'll see that it was there. I don't know. Did you see that?
It was great.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Nick.
Is the newspaper
Appreciate it.
available online as well?
It is.
What?
Yep.
Impress.net.
We're about to show it to you.
Okay. Oh, good. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move into new business, and we have one of our favorite things to do is to hear from students and teachers about what's going on in the schools. So thank you all for coming. We've got two groups. I don't know who wants to go first. I can go along the agenda unless you guys have decided that one of you would like to go first. If not, you're up first anyway. So this is our Nashoba Regional High School broadcast journalism presentation. Maybe if you could introduce yourselves and of course your teacher.
Yes.
That's okay. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Take some heat off of her for a minute.
Hi, I'm Julia. We kind of already did this.
No, because people that are watching this
right,
don't know who you
sorry.
are.
Hi, I'm Julia. I'm a senior at Nashoba, and I'm a lead anchor with the Nashoba News and the morning announcements.
Hi, my name is Paul. I'm a junior at Nashoba, and I'm the executive producer of Nashoba News.
Hey, I'm Sam Mitchell. I'm a senior at Nashoba, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the newspaper.
Welcome.
And I'm Jackie Carter. I'm a journalism teacher and Nashoba News and Chieftain Press Advisor. So these guys are impressive people. They engage in projects that, they keep them up half the night doing things. That's the kind of kids they are. They are amazing writers, producers, and anchors, and they're going to tell you a little bit about what they do.
Okay.
Sam, you want to go first?
Absolutely. So I have been involved with journalism since my freshman year, and it's been an amazing program to be a part of. It really touches on a lot of different aspects of who I am as a person, but also on different aspects of just life in general, because one of the things that we do at the paper is we cover global and local news, but in many different areas. So we'll cover arts news with both a global and local focus. We cover sports both at Nashoba and local sports teams like the Patriots, Red Sox. Then we cover politics and we cover general news as well. And the program, since I was a freshman, has just grown exponentially, both in what it does for the students that are a part of it and for the way that it impacts the school in general. It's become, it's really a special class to be a part of. I've taken it 3 times now, and it's phenomenal because it's one of the only classes at the school, and it's kind of, I've been able to see it become this and really flourish. It's one of the only classes at the school where your entire goal is about creating something and just putting your hard work into, in my case, into something that will eventually get printed, which is a great experience that I think you don't get enough of in your regular classes. And there's an aspect of journalism that's really unique also because it kind of bridges a gap between the kind of English that you do in the classroom and the kind of skills that one would need in the real world. It's not just writing a paper or something like that. It's covering a story, and it's something that can continue from week to week and change. It's something that you need to really do research on, and that's not just research in a book, but it's research. Like we came and we talked to Superintendent Clenchy, and that was the basis for an article that you'll see on the front page of the Chieftain Press. And it's something that allows you to get out into the world and really experience it through journalism, and that's a phenomenal thing.
Thanks.
So, my name's Paul, and I've been part of journalism this is my 2nd year, and I'm in charge of the weekly broadcast. We do weekly news every Friday morning at 11:05 a.m., and it's about 10 to 15 minutes long, depending on the week, and it covers local events that are happening within the Nashoba community of events, sports, anything that we include. Teachers send us information all the time, and there's actually part of it's playing up on the screen if you. And Julia anchors in it, along with we have a whole class that anchors and is part of it. Currently, we are using a Wirecast system, which is a which is a software program, and we use it through YouTube. But we started out way back when with just a camera and a phone, and we were just talking through the intercom in the school, and then we had a mixing system, but that was very unreliable, so we've gone to Wirecast now, and it works much better, but there's still a few glitches in it every once in a while, but we've been able to work through them and resolve them. Besides our weekly broadcast, we've also expanded into doing, last year we did graduation. We filmed our live streamed graduation for those that couldn't make it, and we also have been doing sporting events. We did our first one a few weeks ago, volleyball, their pink night, and we have a lot more that we've been planning. And then we also are now making 15-minute segments. We did our first one last year, and we sent it to the local access station, and it's called Nashoba Talks. It was last year, and it was 15 minutes about like TED Talks that the senior class did. And this year we've redone them into Chieftain Chats, and they have come out. The first one's coming out next week, and it features Superintendent Clenchy's interview with Lorraine Ramasco's discussion, and then Dr. Graham said a few things in as well.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, so hi. I've been doing stuff with the technology aspect of Nashoba since sophomore year, and this is actually my first time doing journalism. However, I started doing video production, and that's how I became involved in technology, and I absolutely fell in love with it. It's kind of funny because I didn't actually really expect to do anything with technology. I was gonna do theater for the rest of my life, and it just, like, my friend was like, this looks like a fun class, and I just joined because it looked fun, and now it's my favorite thing in the world, and I've never looked back. And so yeah, I did video production for 2 years, and now I'm doing journalism, which I absolutely love, and it's my favorite class. I look forward every day to seeing these lovely people, my wonderful teacher. And so I write the script, and most of the time, if you're gonna turn on the Nashoba News, you'll probably see my face. I do the Nashoba News, like the actual anchoring.
So if anybody
mostly
wants
every
to
week.
see at 11:05 on most Fridays, you can go to the YouTube Chieftain Press YouTube channel, and you can watch these guys live
Yeah.
on Fridays. So it's
I
pretty fun.
just, yeah, I mean, I love this class, and it's, now I want to do broadcast journalism, like, so the whole class just completely changed my life, and like, I just think that it's so important, and classes like this should not be taken for granted, because I barely had time to fit it into my schedule, and if I didn't take it, I'd still be doing theater, and I can't even imagine doing that right now, because I'm so happy every day to be writing the script, and like, doing anchoring and writing, you know, it's just really been a wonderful experience for me, and something that, like, all core classes are important, but something like this I think is sometimes taken for granted.
Terrific.
And
Thank you so
yeah.
much, Julia.
That's awesome. Thank you, all three of you. So what are you going to share with us?
So up here, I just closed it because I thought we were way over our time, which I.
You have a couple more minutes, actually.
Well, let me see if I can go back there now.
Did I put you on the spot?
No, I just wasn't expecting to go back. Sorry.
Well, we also use Twitter a lot, the Chieftain
Oh,
Press
thank
does,
you.
and we tweet all of our stories, or the majority of them, on Twitter, and we also retweet a lot of the stuff that the athletic department does, and we use it as a large communication to get people both in Nashoba and beyond Nashoba involved in what's going on.
So I have a question. How big is the program now?
So the program right now is we just have one journalism class. I do teach two video classes, and I try to draw from those 3 classes to produce the broadcasts on Fridays. It's mostly weighted though on my journalism kids. It's hard to practice for Fridays if you have kids in one class and another class. You need to be together. So our schedule that we have currently doesn't work all that well for what we're trying to do. And you know, it's pretty good. I think we have I think there's only 15 kids that are in there, but I know a lot more kids signed up for it, but because of schedule reasons, they couldn't get in. And I know my class isn't the only, I know marketing, kids try to get into marketing, but because of their schedules, they can't get into those either.
So how long has the program been in existence?
Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it. It's probably been, from the very beginning, maybe not journalism, but the broadcast has been around, what,
Yeah.
8 years?
Yeah, I was going to say
About
7 or 8 years. We had broadcasting, and then prior to Jackie
I've been
doing
doing 4.
journalism, we had another teacher do it for about 3 or 4 years. So maybe about a total of 8 years, but I think as the students have said, it's really grown a lot in the last 3 years, and I think Jackie tying in the journalism writing component with the video component, you can see the excitement and the passion that the kids have. We'd love to see that type of program expand. We'd love for you to build us a TV studio, and we have a few other, but we make do with what we have.
If you made it a little bit more attainable,
Yeah.
please funnel all that up to
Baby
Superintendent.
steps, that's a long-term goal, but baby steps. So this is our Chieftain Press. If you ever want to read our news, it's chieftainpress.net, and it's updated. It's updated probably almost every couple days, and some weeks daily. We might have multiple articles that come out. We usually tweet out our articles too, so that if you are a Twitter follower, you can follow us on Twitter, and you can see the new articles as they come out, or you could just go to the Chieftain Press. The other thing that the kids were talking about is if you go to YouTube and you go to, this comes up, you go to the Chieftain Press channel, you can watch our broadcasts, some of our past broadcasts. If you go up here to the Chieftain Press, you'll see, I don't know why it's not doing that, but we have 71 videos here. And these are all of our different broadcasts. This was our pink night that we did for volleyball. So they had a really nice beginning because they dedicated that to people that they had lost to cancer, and it was a nice little dedication. So we captured that as well as the game itself. So we're trying to get out in the community and also cover things. So I brought the kids to Walden Pond. Don Henley recently dedicated the new visitor center, and I was invited there, and so I took the kids there so they could meet him and interview and cover that story. So we're trying to do a lot of things like that.
So I'm going to ask the school committee if they have quick, brief comments, because we want to get to the DECA group before I add anything myself. Does anybody have anything, any questions? Neil?
Well, first of all, really well spoken, all three of you. I just said, right, you guys didn't do it once through the entire presentation, which I thought was awesome.
You just
Very
did
good
it.
again.
It's in your head. Put one in your head.
It's now in my head. How many of you are going on to, like, you're thinking about going on to college doing this?
I can't speak for everyone else, but I mean, I know I definitely am.
Okay.
I'm hoping to do a minor or double major with journalism and pair it with economics and politics.
He wants to be the next Paul Krugman.
Very
He
cool.
needs to be. He's an amazing debater,
He
too.
is.
So it's just nice because it shows that this is a fairly influential class for the kids that are involved in that. I like that. I appreciate it.
I love that, too. And Ms. Dr.
Yeah.
Plenchie.
I
just
just
promoted
really
you.
quickly here, I want to say, and I think I sent something back to Sam or Paul, I can't remember, just after you came. So the morning that I knew that you were coming, I thought, I heard that there was just going to be a student or two that would be coming in to talk with me. And then, of course, I see you come in with cameras, and it's like, oh my gosh, and you had, lots of questions. I thought it was going to be one or two questions. I think there were like 300, but I'm not sorry about that. But, I responded back, I think, that night and told you how much I appreciate what you did. And just exactly to Mr. Darcy's comment, I think I mentioned in that email how much I appreciated your level of professionalism, the spirit that you brought. You heard Ms. Murata talk about your passion for the work that you did, and I think that all comes through. And tonight you just shone. So I thank you so much for everything you do. You're doing a great job. So as I said to you earlier, I'm so proud of you. I really am.
Thanks.
So, thank you very much. And just one thing, guys, so journalism majors don't necessarily end up where they think they're going to go, but it's an amazing education. If anybody wants a recommendation, call me. Okay. All right. Thanks. I know you. Okay. Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Mrs. Carter. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Stavros, you have, what big smile you have.
A.
Can I borrow your laptop?
So, who wants to introduce your group to us?
All right. Do you mind pulling up that email?
Go ahead, start it off. Okay, so we're, all four of us are advisors for our DECA chapter. I'm Owen Fay, and I'm the president of the Nashoba DECA chapter.
I'm Jake Fire. I'm Jake Fire. I'm the vice president. I've been doing DECA since my freshman year, and I'm from Stowe.
Good job, good job.
Hey, Owen, put in a push for Lancaster. Come on.
Go ahead. Let's let them have the floor. Okay.
I'm Megan Buzzier. This is my second year in the program. I'm also from Stowe, and I'm a social media officer.
I'm Isam Leono. I'm also VP, and I'm also from Stowe.
All right,
All
so
right.
we're going to get our presentation queued up, but while it's coming up, I just want to tell you guys a little, the pressures are on us now to not do the ums and the ahs, so thank you, Mr. Darcy. It's something we cover in class, and now I'm extremely
got it in your head.
so thank you. So I want to tell you guys a little bit about DECA. When I started at Nashoba about 7 years ago, the program, I was a former DECA student, so I knew how it affected me when I was in their shoes. And I went from a pretty not very confident kid that didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life and what I wanted to major in college and such. And then I stumbled into a DECA meeting somehow, and then here I am. And I wanted to provide that type of opportunity to my students. So I took over a program that I think had about 20 members, and now last year we had 149. So we've literally grown exponentially we've almost doubled every single year since I've been there. No problem. We could do this off the top of our heads if we really need to.
You're DECA. You
Yeah,
should be able to.
we can adapt. So I'm going to introduce you guys to our officers in a second. They're going to tell you about their experiences in DECA and what they've worked on. From my side of things, I know Mr. Darcy's been helping us in the past as a judge, and Ms. Cody Ann has done that in the past as well. I would love to see you guys come out and judge one of our competitions sometime. We do a mock competition, like our dress rehearsal competition last year was our second time doing it at the high school. Before we go to the real competitions and we compete against other schools, we do a little dress rehearsal here. And I want to share with you guys a quick story. I think you would agree with me. I think the best moment in my career happened last year, where we got our Best Buddy program involved with our DECA students, and our DECA students help them develop an idea, create a sales pitch, and then pitch it to the judge. And light bulbs went off, and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever done as an educator. So we've been trying to push for that a little bit more this year. These guys are helping me out with that as we speak. We're trying to integrate that further into our mock competition this year, so we're going further that way. So without further ado, I know you guys probably don't want to hear from me, and now we have a visual, so this is great. I'm going to throw it over to Owen Fay, our president. He's going to tell you a little bit about our organization, and then each officer will tell you about their projects throughout the years, briefly.
So what DECA is a organization that teaches students about business, really, and students compete against other students from our school if they do the same category, and students from other schools in business categories, anywhere from marketing to finance, and participants write a paper on whatever category they're in. It can be anywhere from 5 to 30 pages, and they also make a poster. And there's 3 tiers of competition in addition to the mock competition that Mr. A mentioned. We start off with a district competition, which is only 6 or 7 schools, and usually the top 7 in each category move on to the state competition, which is in Boston. That's definitely a great experience. We have been lucky enough to go the past 3 years, hoping to go again this year. And there we compete against everyone in Massachusetts, and it's really just a great experience to learn more, not just about business, but about leadership and teamwork. And really the goal is to get to the international competition, which we haven't been
not yet accomplished.
We've been close, but not quite there. Hopefully this year. DECA's definitely taught me a lot about business, leadership, and teamwork. Before I started DECA my freshman year, I really had no idea what I wanted to do for a career. But now, after doing DECA for so long, and after really understanding what business is, and specifically marketing, I'm pretty sure I want to go into marketing as a major in college. And DECA's really taught me a lot about myself and what I want to do in the future.
So let me ask you something, if you don't mind. What you said it's taught you a lot about different things. What's the one thing that stands out the most that it's taught you? And I don't mean to put you on the spot. Just don't think about it.
I think probably teamwork and time management, because we've written really big papers in the past, and it's really a big time commitment. But really finding something that we're passionate about, and it's really not hard to write a 30-page paper when everyone thinks
when
that's
you
a
love
really
it.
long paper. And then it's fun to present because we've worked so hard, and it's really taught me that putting a lot of time and effort into something I'm passionate about is not as hard as you think it is.
Great answer.
All right, so I'm Jake Fire, and me and Owen were just 2 lonely freshmen.
We have a picture of
That is us, 4 years ago. And Mr. Ray showed us a new world, and I'll tell you about each of our projects through this experience. Freshman year, we did 5 guys. We did a advertising campaign because we thought to ourselves, we don't really see too many advertisements for 5 guys. They're just a pretty well-known company, and that was our project. And we didn't really have much. We didn't really know what we were doing too well, but Mr. Ray kind of walked us through it, and we ended up making it to the States. And we didn't play so well because we were just freshmen. We didn't know what we were doing, but sophomore year comes along, all right? And we are doing the New England Revolution, sports entertainment. And we decided to move the Revolution from the Patriots Stadium to their own specific soccer stadium in Boston to try to bring more fans in, because there's more walk-in traffic and stuff like that. And the tees would end up going to the stadium, and it would end up creating more revenue for the stadium, for the team and the organization. And that year, we ended up making it to states and coming in 5th place. And you need to come in the top 4 to go to nationals. So we really bit the bullet on that one. And then our junior year, last year, we did Walmart, and we tried to increase employee productivity, and that would positively influence the company and maybe boost morale of employees, would maybe create more revenue for the company because people would like going to the Walmarts better. And we came in 8th in states, so
They get a lot of money for their stuff too, so I like the other ones, but keep
we
going.
missed out on nationals again, and this year is our last attempt to get nationals, and we're going to try to stay local. And we are going to do the Bolton Bean, actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, we're going to do the Bolton Bean, and we're going to go to nationals, hopefully.
That's awesome.
So I'm Megan Buzzier. Last year was my first year in DECA. I knew sophomore year that I wanted to join a business class because I saw them at videos at States and it looked like a lot of fun. So I joined, and I really had no idea what I was doing. My partner and I worked really hard to create an idea. Like Jake said, last year the prompt was to increase employee engagement at a business, and I specifically chose a bank. So I chose the Cambridge Trust Company in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I created a plan to help increase customer service and employee engagement at the branch. And I was very fortunate to place top 4 and move on to nationals in Nashville, Tennessee. And even though we didn't do too well there, it was a great experience, and I've really learned a lot from DECA. I've become a better presenter. I've learned more about business, and I found something that I want to do a career in, and it's a really great organization to be a part of, especially in the Nashoba community where we can really build off of it, and I can't wait to see how it grows in the next few years.
Very good, thank you.
Alright, hey guys, I'm Misam Leona again, and could I just have you all take a moment and look at those 2 pictures? So one of the things I love most about DECA is the mentorship that it provides to the students. Over there we have, I forgot his name, on the right is a professor from Babson.
Mr. Hoover.
Mr. Hoover. And on the left is Mr. Mancini, whom I've talked to after school for countless days. And this is one of my favorite parts about DECA because I think one of the biggest goals that we have as a school community is to connect students with the older generation, perhaps, or the people with more knowledge. Sorry, guys. But people who can give their expertise to the students and help them out. And so this is the mentorship that I love most about DECA. And so, for example, when I came, when I was put on the school council, one of my goals for the school council was to provide a mentorship program for high school students. And I don't think anything can go beyond what DECA has provided for this. And so, let's see, what was I going to talk about? So my DECA project was, last year was Hand in Hand, which is a community service database which connects teachers, charities, and students, so it'll be easier for students to give back to the community. And this year, my project is a Model UN conference, which I'm hosting, and so what I'm trying to do is get a bunch of middle school students around our area and help them provide or teach them about Model UN and how to debate, negotiate, and compromise on issues. So, and I don't think I would honestly feel as empowered as I was without DECA, because when you have to write the 30-page paper, you go through all the processes it takes to achieve something. And so going that step further and doing it by doing the middle school conference, for example, is something that feels so amazing. And this is why I love DECA and why I feel like it's one of the few things that the high school offers which can actually make you feel like you achieved something.
Oh, we need to find you more things, but that's a good. That's definitely a good thing. So, I have a question for you.
Sure.
How do you find mentors, and what are the qualifications that you're looking for in a mentor? And you know, she's like, "Are you interviewing right now?" And what's the process? Because this is these guys are really impressive.
Yeah.
You're all quite articulate. And I mean, there's a theme here with the passion that we're hearing, but I love, you talked about employee engagement, right? And how, you talked about employee,
yes.
we need to talk. But what are you looking for? Are you looking for other community members to?
We're always looking for community members. So
Okay.
the mock competition last year, I brought in, I think, 40 judges from outside the school. A lot of them are my friends from the business world that I went to college with, but a lot of them were local, like Clinton Savings Bank brought like 5 employees, Bose
Oh.
brought like 5 employees, so we're bringing a lot of local
Nice.
professionals. A lot of the parents of students, so on parent-teacher night, I'm a salesman. I look for lots of judges that way, but we're always looking, so if you have anyone, we're more than welcome.
And they should contact
Me, Stavros Andriopoulos.
Stavros Andriopoulos. All you have to do is call the front office and ask for the fellow that
Oh,
handles
post
Mr.
that.
Mr.
Mr. A.
Mr. A. Okay,
Yeah.
great. School committee, do you have any questions you'd like to ask Lynn?
Can anybody join DECA, or do they have to take certain classes?
So that's the only negative, I guess, is that you have to qualify to join DECA, and it's not my rule, it's a DECA rule, is that you have to show proof that you're either enrolled or have taken a previous business course.
So how does a freshman get on?
I don't have many freshmen, but I have a few freshmen. Usually juniors and seniors they have first, they sign up for classes first, so I usually have the older kids a lot of the time. But my intro to business classes, so a few freshmen sneak in now. But we've unfortunately pushed some students away in the past with business classes. We haven't been able to accommodate all the signups that we've had in the past, but usually it's juniors and seniors that are in DECA.
So does it have to be a traditional business class?
What do you mean by traditional? So it's
Do you
usually
have to have
intro
business
to
in the title?
yeah. So the qualifying courses are typically marketing and intro to business are the 2 biggest feeders into the DECA program. Entrepreneurship, accounting, even personal finance counts. Unfortunately, like classes like computer applications don't count, or something.
So the personal finance one doesn't count?
It does count.
Oh, it
yeah.
does count.
Yep.
Okay.
So a lot of freshmen are in that class too. So
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
I just want to reiterate, too, exactly what's already been said on the table. I think tonight you presented it so professionally, and you articulated yourself so well, just exactly as Chairman Romasco had said. And I also want to take the opportunity to say thanks to our staff that do such a fantastic job. The rewards are standing in front of us, and again, I say to you folks tonight, we're just so proud. We are just so proud of your efforts. And to hear the excitement and the passion that you speak with is just really amazing. So thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Neil?
Just a little feedback. So I was able to attend the mock competition, and really, really great to see that many students and the amount of effort that they put in, and just the varied projects that they're working on. It's actually inspirational, and if anybody here can get to that, I would highly recommend it. It's just a great thing to see what's being done.
Forward you the
So
the
why don't you
information.
forward,
This
yeah,
guy
so
up
we can
here-
get it out to our folks.
This guy up here needs a huge amount of kudos, because to grow the DECA program the way that he's grown the DECA program over such a short period of time, and to see the way that the kids respond to him is just it's fantastic, because you can tell that you're inspiring them, and that's
I'm
a
going to
great
steal a
thing to
line
see.
from Sam Mitchell, who spoke so great earlier. I think the kids I love DECA because they're creating something. And I
Mhm.
think that's a common, like when I was listening to journalism, I was like, that's the same thing that happens in my classroom. When you give them, when they're the leaders of what they're doing, they're the champions of what they're learning, and I'm just kind of a helper and a coach, like it's the easiest, this job, it could be the easiest thing in the world sometimes, because they lead and I kind of help, and that's, I mean, when they have that, it's great. Sometimes it could be stressful, don't get me wrong, but the creating part is the best.
I don't think you give yourself enough credit, because I feel very fortunate that I work with both Jackie and Stavros, and there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. So when he's planning to take kids to, whether it's the states or national, there's a lot of planning behind the scenes. Both Jackie and Stavros, a lot of hours after school planning and working on projects with kids. And during our late starts, we've been talking a lot about project-based learning and how important that is in the role of education. And that's what I love about our department is not only DECA and journalism, but we have technology education as well in our department, and it's hands-on, it's project-based learning, and we're trying to connect that as much as possible to community in real world, and I'm really proud of the work that they do.
Thank you all. We sit around this table and we do a lot of work off this table, a ton of work behind the scenes. And when you guys come in and talk to us and you show us what you're doing, it's the reward for all the work. So thank you teachers, thank you staff, guys, good luck. I want to get involved, so I'm going to be talking to you, especially with employee engagement, because I get paid to do it, so I can help you.
Yeah, that's both of us.
Oh, it's both of you. All right, well, there you go. All right, thanks guys, I really appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I have to apologize to the school committee. I know we're behind, but I think it was well worth the extra time. Next on the agenda is the policy, the class size policy. So it looks like Nicole or Neil, which one of you is going to speak to that?
I think Nicole is.
Hello. What did you do to the policy?
I think it kind of speaks for itself, and I am going to ask Neil to chime in. He was part of the deliberations on it. After first looking it over with Dr. Bates and then having Superintendent Clenchy be a part of the deliberations, I was concerned. I don't want to speak for the rest of the school committee, but I was concerned with putting the administration in a box, putting the administration at risk of not being in line with policy. And I believe, as I say a lot, that the school committee's job is to hold the superintendent's feet to the fire on how they run their district, and this would fall under that, something that we would request report outs from the administration. And so leaving it open leads to different interpretations by different school committees. Also, we cannot tell the future what's going to happen with instructional or curriculum trends, and so to say that to put a certain number on a class, I think, is unfair, because we don't, again, know what's going to happen in the future. Neil?
I think that's pretty spot on. I think the rationale, my perception of the rationale for, I won't say gutting this, but making quite a bit of change in this, is that if you look at the things that are in there, they are dictating things. I think they're binding the hands of the superintendent from being able to do what needs to be done. And intermediate steps such as using technology, aids, other staff may be considered as alternative to opening new classes, etc. It's just some funky things that are put in there that I think are just ancillary, and of course, I think the superintendent needs to make a rationale, and we as a school committee will come in and have that conversation about, hey, class sizes are getting to this, what's being done, and it's really up, I think, to the superintendent to decide how she's going to handle that and meet those challenges, and then come to us and say, here's the tools in the toolbox that I'm going to be applying, rather than us say, here's what you have to work with. I think that it's been done sort of in a reverse way.
And I can't speak for Susan, but that's pretty much exactly what she said too. If we want to have her voice in here also.
I want to hear from Superintendent Clenchy on this one. I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the
That's
spot.
okay.
But everyone keeps talking about you. But before we do that, I want to hear if Jennifer and Lynn and Mark have any questions, because I know I do, but I want to hear if you have any questions on this. And if you don't make one up. We'll move on, please.
the only thing I have about it was, I mean, the MSBA is, when they design a school, basically they have a number in mind, and they say, you know, this is the average. You know, every district, they can pick and choose what they want, but they've got their average. So I don't know if you're gonna refer back to that at some level, because a lot of questions do come up, especially with space needs, number of kids in a class. You know, and we've used that in the past to increase the number of teachers in a certain grade, you know, as things have come up. So I'm not really, it does give them more flexibility, but we still have the MSBA to fall back on. So I mean, you pretty much, you gutted the whole thing, which is fine. I mean, you guys have the right to do that, but there are still numbers out there.
Well, there's always going to be numbers out there, but a part of that other rationale, just to explain, because I get what you're saying. You know, so we went to Bedford, New Hampshire, and we were watching the one-to-one initiative and how that's all rolled out. And there's actually some classes now which they're doing these, almost like we have humanities at the high school right now. So it's English and it's social studies together, and they're working in unison. And so you actually have some classes up at Bedford which had like 40 or 50 students in the class. And then they have breakouts and so forth. But, you know, they're huge. And the students, and because we were curious about this, the students and the teachers are saying this is phenomenally successful, the way that it's being put together. Yeah. So if we put a hard and fast number on it, you can't do that for some of the things that are out there. And then, so some of the classes are going to, you know, maybe have larger size if it's warranted, and then smaller size if it's warranted. But I think that's something the superintendent needs to come to us and report out to us, and then we need to ask the right questions on the school committee and get that rationale, like justify why you're saying this size is good, and we need to make sure of that.
I'm going to hold my comments. Superintendent Clinchey, can you share with us your thoughts on this? Because
Sure.
I assume you've been part of the discussion.
Yeah, but I think that honestly, I didn't drive this discussion, so.
No,
I just want to make sure that that's out there. I think that we had good discussion around the table, for sure. And I think that there were other things that we were taking a look at, you know, contractual links and other such. But to your point, to our member Cletty, one of the things, keep in mind, like, we're able to draw down our class sizes at any given point in time, right? Because everything is on Power School right now. Yeah. So, you know, for example, I did a quick check on all classes across the district, downloaded everything, and had a hard copy of every single thing. I think perhaps I even showed you, but I think it showed Mr. Darcy, yeah. And it's, you know, probably about 3 inches thick, that when you take a look at all of the classes that are there, you know. So it's not that we don't see it, or that we can't deal with it, or we can't make comments on it, or whatever. That's all. And I think you made the comment, it's the numbers are always out there, the numbers. So I think, in all honesty, I think what they were trying to do, and you know, I certainly don't want to speak for you, but I think you were just trying to make sure there was enough latitude there that it wasn't specific to the superintendent or specific to Nashoba, and gave the room that was necessary. So I think that, I don't want to speak for you, but I think that was the thinking behind it.
So I'm gonna, do you have something to say?
Sure, I can sort of see a motivation for the original guideline and policy, in the sense that the previous school committees were asking for a report from the superintendent when they're reaching limits, and so please tell us that the policy is going to have trouble. So I think sort of one thing that you lose is that you may not have a sort of forcing process that requires the superintendent to report back at particular levels of classroom. So I wonder if there's any comment about that kind of point of view.
Well, I'd be curious to know what drove the discussion initially, because I'm not sure that I understand that piece. And you're right, I mean, some of the discussion did happen with Dr. Bates, and I had reached out to him, actually had some discussion with him as well on this. So I wouldn't want you to think that this wasn't well discussed. It was very well discussed. But perhaps you can enlighten me as to, from your lens, as to what initiated this.
Right, I can only speculate, but I can imagine some previous school committee 10 years ago or more said, we really want to know if our classes are above X size, so therefore we're going to make it a policy, and therefore cause a conversation to happen when populations reach those limits. That's entirely speculative, but I could see that there's a rationale to do that.
And that is the one sentence that has remained in this particular policy is, requiring the superintendent to report to the school committee throughout, on class sizes throughout the district on an annual basis.
I'll also point out that at that point in time, historically, we had a big, I don't know if we went into receivership or if we had that big financial, that was our big financial kick that we got. It was, I believe, 96. So we're going into that year with some issues that are going on. I don't know if that drove that to ensure that because of the fiscal crisis, class sizes weren't going to jump up to 30 kids, 35 kids in a class. So I don't know if that's why.
And that may well be the link, because when we went to look at for MESC, for a policy from MESC, there isn't one.
Right.
And so that meant that it had to be Nashoba driven, so from my lens. So I was just curious to know.
So okay, and then I really want to say something. You've already talked once, but go ahead.
I know, but he brought it up based on the date. Around this time, parity was a big issue, and
no, in 2008.
2008.
No, it was 1995 is when this was originally.
No, parity came into Bolton. Parity entered Bolton in, what was that, Neil? 2000. But anyway, I'm going to piggyback off of what you said. So I'm going to play devil's advocate, because that's how we play. Doesn't the no, really, I mean, I don't have an opinion, and we're not voting on this tonight, are we? Because I'm not ready to, but others may be. How does this help us with budget planning? Because I would assume that if we have a policy in place that indicates the number of students, then we know if we're going to have an influx of students over the next year or two, that we're going to have to hire teachers. If we don't have a guideline, loose as it may be or not, then we don't have that. No, I'm just throwing out, this is devil's advocate. The other thing, and I think a bigger concern for me is parents are very sensitive to the number of students in classrooms. And this summer, we saw it. And if we aren't able to somehow provide some, and maybe doesn't have to be a number, but we've got to be able to provide them some type of, that we have some type of guardrails by which we determine how full those classrooms are going to be. I think that's going to create more problems for the superintendent, not less. Because, I know that parents are counting the number of kids. They contacted me, I'm sure you got contacted with, there's, the policy says 25, we've got 26 kids, when are you going to add a teacher? So how does that become less problematic if you take the guardrails out?
Well, I would first ask, because this policy is somewhat specific to Nashoba. There's not a class size policy in other high performing districts.
At all?
How do they handle it?
I don't know.
So that's what I'm saying. That might be something that we need to research, because I don't know, in all honesty, if we need this policy.
You know what? I'm almost liking that more than this. If you're not going to have something
we weren't that
substantive.
bold.
What?
We weren't that bold to just offer.
Well, the kids are creative. Get creative.
But that's basically why we took that down to just very basic common sense language. So it really has, it's hobbled this for sure, what we've done. And I get what you're saying, but honestly, Mass doesn't have this with any numbers that are in there. I would be shocked if any of the superintendents in the past, or if Brooke is going to look at this policy and determine the budget based on the policy, because there's fluctuations. And then we have these classes. So what, you have this humanities class, now you've got 24 kids in that. I'm giving the example of that Bedford. Now you've got 40 kids in that class, but technically you're way over And you need to have another teacher that's in there, even though you really don't need to.
I know, but you're, I mean, and I love that example, and I can't wait for Superintendent Clenchey to get our district to the point where we could have classes like that. Sure. I mean,
right,
you know,
absolutely.
that different type of a curriculum structure. And I know that we're going to get there, but right now we're not. And what worries me is, I'm good if you guys decide there's no class size. I just say, I do think that this does help us identify the number of teachers we're going to need for the following year, which does impact the budget because we will know, and we know, I mean, you contact the towns, you know who's moving in, who's not, and the ages of the students, so that does provide a guideline. That does help us predict the budget. So that's one thing, but the other thing is, I just think you got to figure out, you know, we went through this whole process of parity that constricted us for several years, and not just in Bolton, it was every one of the member towns. And so I don't want to flop to the complete opposite side without there being some predictability somewhere. That's all. And I'm thinking more and less about the high school, because I think you could be more creative there, but more because of the types of classes and the structure of the day. I'm thinking more about the elementary and the middle schools.
Yeah, but I think that we generally tend to work on averages, and I think to your point, I think you said it really, really nicely, Mr. Darcy, because you said, you know, it's common sense, and I think that that's kind of the stick for us. That's where you look to. I am really concerned about. I mean, we can take the summer as a perfect example and say if we had set that number at 24, and each one of those schools, and that I'm thinking of one grade, had hit 24 or 25, let's say there's 3 classes, 24, 25, 23, or another 24, and you were one over, then what? And then you would have had to go do that across the district, not just in that one community, right? You really, like that one point becomes a tipping point then. So you really have to look at that level of consistency across the district. By not having that number in here this summer made it helped us. So I to be honest with you, I would tend to agree more with the notion of, do you even need this policy?
Right.
And to Lynn's point, there are numbers out there. You know, there are experts that we can look to in the future, you know, if and when parents come to us and say, you know, what's going on with my kids' class, there's, you know, this many kids in this class, we can turn to experts and say, well, you know, maybe that isn't in line. Superintendent, please explain this to us.
And I think it's important to point out, we never had a number in here for any K through 8. That's not in here. That only deals with high school, that 24 number.
But isn't there a protocol that goes along with this? I remember there being a protocol by, Alita, do you remember? There's a protocol by almost like grades. Yeah, there is a protocol that's attached to this.
That went to the school choice policy.
Okay.
And so
Which ties in.
it says the only thing for K through 8, and just to, I know it's there, but just to point it out, is, you know, pre-K through 8, that they're going to be similar in size. It doesn't cap where they are. It doesn't give a minimum, a max, whatever. So it's that parity thing that we're talking about.
But then, Neil, Lynn just brought something up that, so let's talk, I mean, and I know we're not talking about the school choice policy right now, but this is directly, school choice policy is directly reliant upon this. If this goes away, right, because we say, well, if we have X number of spaces and we don't have X number of kids to fill those spaces, then we have the option to open up school choice. Isn't that, am I going down a rat hole here? Because
Yeah.
I'm getting nervous about this.
I'm not nervous about this, but so I would respectfully disagree with you. But you know, I think your superintendent can come forward and say, you know what, these are the numbers that are sitting in this class right now. You really would, if you had school choice, you really would have room for, let's say, 5 seats or 7 seats, in light of the fact that this number happens to be so low here or whatever. Because you're always going to have those bubbles, you know, through you know, the different grade levels. I would come back to the what's common sense.
Okay.
I mean, we beat each other up on this one, going back and forth. There were a lot of devil's advocate situations being played.
Yeah, I would agree.
I can see that because it's such a, and you know, honestly, I applaud the effort. And because as I'm saying the words, I'm thinking, well, maybe if we got rid of those numbers, maybe that would diffuse some of the concern and it would be less about the number and more about, you know, you as the educator, the head educator, understanding what's appropriate. Can I
Again, but
just
it is
get
that way. It is that way, except for high school right now. We do have it that way. And that's so that everyone understands that, and that anyone that might, the 3 people that might be watching this right now understand that there is no, there is, and 3 people there, there is no limit right now that's set through K, for pre-K through 8. So we're not changing that. We're not saying, hey, we're gonna suddenly inflate kindergarten classes and everything else. That kindergarten conversation, all that other, that was just, that again, that was common sense conversation that was taking place, not policy that was driving that.
All right, Jennifer.
I'm actually in agreement with Nicole. Why have it? I mean, it's not, there's
I mean,
nothing
if it's
left.
gonna be this, yeah.
But I would say that policy or some subcommittee should still request an annual report out, just so that we can keep an eye on it. Not to second guess, but
No, just to
I think that-
monitor and watch, and I absolutely understand that.
So, I don't think there's enough left in here to even be a policy.
I agree.
Then
This is
I'm-
the
I'm good.
recommendation.
So, what would you say? You say in sub-policy, or how do you
Well, at
make
the-
it so that it does get, so that it
It's
happens?
gonna have to be one of the reports request, we don't have, some school committees have, education, curriculum subcommittees that are.
Yeah, some of
So
them
we don't.
tried.
So I think it just should be on the
I have the
radar
rationale.
that somebody has, some subcommittee, it's one of their report, or even the committee as a
Well,
the
and
whole can use it as a
I
report.
think Lorraine might have already answered that question, because class sizes do affect the budget, and so if it,
There you go.
So
it's
the-
part of the finance.
There is a rationale for this being a policy still. And it's really the last sentence in there. And it's because and it addresses exactly what you just said, Jennifer. The superintendent will report to the school committee on the class sizes throughout the district on an annual basis. Okay? And what that does by being a policy is it requires, if it's not in there, it doesn't get done, right? And that's part of what we do policies for, is to provide guidelines, not just for the district, but also for the superintendent. And by having that little thing in there, it ensures that there is, hopefully, as long as people are following policy, there is an annual report out for the class size. So then we can keep that check and balance, and we don't have to remember or call it forward.
So one last question for me. This is before the cross out. This was the February 2008 version. What did the 1995 version look like? Is there any way to know? I just wonder if this was, okay, so I'll let that go. Well, no, there's a reason for that, but, so, did you mention, Nicole, someone mentioned that other high-performing districts don't have a class size policy?
Right.
Right.
We know that many other districts don't have this policy. I can't name them off the top of my head. But this is not a standard policy according to MASC.
And did anybody talk to Dorothy and ask her what she thought about it?
No.
No,
Nope.
that
All
would
right.
even have.
So what do you want to, what do you want to do with this policy tonight?
Just like any other policy, it doesn't seem like we want to make any big edits to it. So I don't think it needs to go back to policy.
There's nothing left to edit.
Yeah, I think the question now, moving forward, is on the next agenda, do we vote this policy through, or do we vote to delete this policy?
I think we need to put it on the next agenda because I would like to hear, I think this is a big deal, and maybe
It is.
maybe what I think is not appropriate, but I think this is gonna beg a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to give, I wanna hear what Susan has to say, and definitely what Kathy has to say, being an educator. And then maybe we make the decision at the next meeting.
Okay.
Does that work?
The last thing I just want to point out, we have an arbitrary number that's in there. It's 24 that we have for the high school. But then if you go down to item 3, intermediate steps such as technology, et cetera, it's only a suggestion, that
Right.
24.
That's a
That's
throwaway.
not, it's a throwaway. And then look at number 3, justifies why you could actually make it more than that number. So you then have to ask yourself, does it even make any sense for that to be in there?
No, you know what,
Do-
Neil?
do you know what I
I'm
mean?
I'm not challenging you guys on this, because remember, this is the first time we're seeing
Oh,
it,
yeah,
so you
yeah.
guys have looked at it 1, 2, 3 times, right?
Yes.
This is our first time, and I'm just, I just, you know,
No, it's a big
all
thing.
habits
It's a big
die
deal.
hard, no disrespect intended, but I think we just need one more meeting,
Yeah.
and then, I don't know how you folks feel. Jonesy?
I'm happy to have the report out, and I'm content to take the advice of the policy committee on this at the moment. I think I'll be thinking about it.
Okay, perfect. Guys, this was good. I asked Alina how long she thought that this part of the agenda was going to be, and she said it could be really short or really long. So thanks, guys. All right, which is actually a nice little segue into subcommittee reports requests. Anybody work on those reports?
I'll speak for policy. We decided that policy is really an ad hoc committee to begin with. That policies come up that need revision, that the the state comes to you and says that this needs to be updated, or you need to have this policy in place. And it is the responsibility of the superintendent to keep the policy committee apprised of what policies need to be revised. And so there's not a specific policy report that we would be asking
Makes
for.
sense.
I'm just wondering though, but within this one that you just did, there's a specific request for the superintendent sometime in the year to report out on the class sizes.
To the school committee in general, is what the
Right.
policy says.
Which is what, that's the report out, right? That's what we're looking for? So one report out per year, and we're looking for a master list? So are there other policies that have that same specific request?
That's a
Is
really
that
good question.
really what you're asking for? I just want to make sure, because I'm not sure that that's really what you're asking for. Like, what you're suggesting is, just so I heard you correctly, a report out of every single class in the entire district? Is that what you're asking for?
No, it's whatever was on the policy.
Oh, okay. 'Cause
But no, what I'm
class
asking is
sizes across the district.
through the policies, some of them might have specific requests that there is a report out. So would there be a master list saying, okay, per this policy, once
Oh,
a
I
year,
see.
we need this, we need this.
Oh,
result.
throughout
maybe
the
what we do
policy
is create a
manual.
master list.
A great point. That's
Yeah.
something that we need
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
I
look
agree.
But that
Yeah.
policy wouldn't probably receive it, it would be the school
It would
committee
be
in
the school
general.
committee, yes, but we need,
But
but we
you need
need
to
a
know if
list
they're
of what
there.
policies,
Right.
yeah.
So what are next steps on that?
Well, Lynn just hit on something that's actually really good. Kudos.
Oh my gosh, it's
Because part of the problem, and it's a legacy thing, part of the problem as we're going through this stuff, we're like, oh, there is a policy on this, and we've never followed it. And I think that if we add that, well, actually, we don't necessarily want to add that to our goals. I mean, I don't know, but if we can integrate that somehow
Well,
into...
it is part of our goals.
Okay,
And
but
so
if
it
we
has to
get-
be part of every subcommittee goal.
If we can integrate the idea of going through the policies to verify and see whether there are any specific procedures or whatnot that we need to be following. Do you know what I mean? In other words, review the policies and understand the policies and make sure that the policies are being carried out the way that they're supposed to be, and or addressing them if there's a problem with the way that
So
you know what I mean? So making sure that this annual report
Yeah.
gets done. That's on the policy. Make sure that that policy is brought forward.
But is that two different things? One is an actual report and one is just adhering to the
Right, so we
policy.
have to identify what report requests we would actually be making, rather than saying
Okay.
all the report requests are gonna be generated from the superintendent to us on any policy updates. We need to be proactive, go into the policies and find out what report requests might actually
Be required per
required
policy.
to be, exactly.
Okay, so let me just level set something here, because I don't want you, there's so much going on this year, and you guys have so much on your goals. We all have so much on our plates. I don't want you to feel like you gotta go through, how many policies do we have? 200,000?
Yeah, but there's not 200,000. It's 300,000.
Only 150.
It's, but we don't have to go through all of those. It's just there are certain policies and there are certain finances. You know, all the
Right.
financial
So
policies.
let me finish, because I think what we want to know through this effort, right, which is one of our goals, is are there reports that we would like to request of the superintendent and the administration? And if not, if you don't have them, that's okay. That's all right. I don't want you to feel like you need to go through all the policies and go, okay, that you're supposed to have that. We're supposed to have that.
I think we're talking about two different things
What
right
are we
now.
talking
The
about?
reports that this policy subcommittee is going to ask of the superintendent are really on an as-needed basis. There's not a specific one.
Right.
Now that what you're talking about there, what policies require a report out, is a different thing, and I think would make for a good policy subcommittee goal this year.
Right.
So.
I mean, it is part of our goals for the year, right? The report outs and reports. What we're trying to do is just structure so we don't inundate the administration so that they're doing, like Miss Pat Maroney right now has a day job, and then she's got this job, and then she's got that job, and she's rebuilding an entire finance structure, right? I mean, in essence, is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay, so respectfully, we know there are things that we're going to want, but we're trying to be respectful of the incredible workload everybody has and prioritize. So what I'm saying is you don't have to have an exhaustive list. If you guys want to do that, that would be cool, because then we have it, and then next year we may say, you know, which one do we want, which 2 or 3 do we want, without killing everybody. And so for this part of our agenda, if you...
The policy subcommittee is not asking for any report.
That's... Neil, I know he doesn't
We
love
don't
that.
meet until tomorrow.
He is gonna, all right, let's get it out now, because...
So I've thought long and hard about this, and I think that I think we need to define something, and that is, what is a report and what is just a request for information? Because they're two totally different things. One is just generating some quick information that's useful for us, and then I see, in my mind, a report as something being a little more detailed, covering a much deeper dive into certain aspects
It's
of
also
whatever.
more
So I don't necessarily
That's right,
agree
and more
with your
structure.
assessment, because to me, a report is repeatable and defined. And the frequency is determined up front, and it may be tweaked. But the deep dive stuff scares me, because that's where we get ourselves into trouble with the administration is, and so that would have to be defined. And what does deep dive mean? How big is it? Is it a bread box, or is it
That's
a big
what I'm talking about.
elephant?
We need to define all of this. We need to define what is a report. I know it sounds stupid, right? And it almost sounds like,
But the only way to start that is, what are the things that you are interested in? What is the data that you want? And put them down, and then you start to talk about it. What does it look like? How big is it? What's the frequency? I don't think you can define what a report is until you understand what's the word, data, I'm not.
components of the information that we want. But so that's actually part of our goal. So I'm not clear, like right now, we haven't
Right, no, I
talked
know
about
that.
So we can't.
So you built it into your goals, and that's okay, and that's why I'm saying the only goal for this agenda item, which is something that we all talked about and something we all had agreed on, was you're not going to know all of the things that you want right now. I mean, we know we want another Masbo book. We know there are certain things that you're going to want. I can't think about all of them right now. But if there are definitely 2 things, like I know in policy, we've talked about, we need to see a grid that was put together through the personnel subcommittee this past year, which identified, non-union salary, fringe, so that we could, and that's how we started to identify there were inconsistencies in the contracts. So maybe, that's going to be fine, but it at least helped us understand and point to some of the work that personnel needed to do. So one of the things we might be asking from personnel is, we'd still like to see this spreadsheet that was already built for non-union folks, so we can understand, is there fringe, is the fringe not there? Maybe we're looking at, who's using, what's the demand rather for education, like, outside of work, right? It's a benefit. So I'm just trying to say to you folks, if you don't have something right now, it's okay. But the goal of this is to minimize and summarily almost eliminate ad hoc, last minute, deep dive, give us this, we need it, oh my gosh, everybody's hair is on fire moments. And you stop. But that's what the goal of this was can we be more methodical? Can we be more thoughtful? Can we anticipate something that would be useful either in an annual frequency, it's a quarterly frequency, and maybe we don't need anything. But that's what the goal was to try to get some structure around ourselves so that we don't. Does that help? And if you don't have anything, you
we're
don't
all
have
set.
anything.
I mean, we have something tomorrow for the meeting materials. If you look under Finance Subcommittee, that starts exactly that process, and it's
we
a
just missed
justification.
meeting, so we're one behind.
And we're looking to justify the report.
So
we have to have a
maybe-
justification for the report when it comes out, and then what is the report going to comprise, right? Justify the report, and then how, and that justification is going to be how, to what value does that bring to the school committee, to what value does that bring
All right,
to the district?
so you just did your finance update on the reports that you're in the midst of looking at. Perfect, that's it, that's all. But yes, exactly. So the process you just laid out that you guys talked about for finance
Right.
is exactly it. And policy saying we're not gonna really have anything, and that makes sense because they're policies. Do you wanna talk about personnel, or do you? No, because personnel is in a similar boat to finance. We're not there yet. So maybe we take this agenda item and we move it to a later meeting when we're a little bit more grounded in the work that we need to do. Does that make sense? Does everybody understand am I creating busy work here? Because I was hoping not to be.
Nope, we're good.
All right.
Actually, just to help me, so you're trying to distinguish between the ad hoc requests and the regularly occurring reports of some flavor.
I
I'm
think-
hoping to extinguish, to the extent that's reasonable, the ad hoc requests.
The goal of this is to get the school committee the reports that they need in order to do their work within the subcommittees and minimize last minute requests that may or may not, like sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I need this, I need it, and then you step back and did you really need it? And maybe you didn't really need it, but you really weren't sure, and did we do anything with the data? And it's just a way for us to think through, what are we asking for? Is there value in it? How's it driving the work of the school committee, which ultimately is the work of the district, forward? And if we can't answer those questions, maybe we shouldn't ask for it. It's just a way for us to become more disciplined in what we're asking of the administration. I feel like this topic has gone on too long and I've been talking too much. So
are these requests tying into the goals?
absolutely. Should we move on? Thank you. Do we want to talk about subcommittee goals or should I leave? I did look at all of the subcommittee goals, and then I bumped them up against the school committee goals, and I think we're covered, so I'm really psyched about that. So why don't we start with finance?
So I actually think that our finance goal, and I need Jennifer and Mark to take a look at this quickly, but on our last goal, goal number 5, I thought we had eliminated, and I thought it was everybody agreed that we should eliminate, which says to make recommendation to the school committee on the adoption of a plan, but we're going to eliminate on the adoption of a plan, just regarding OPEB.
Right. Where is it?
So we want to strike, there's 4 words we want to strike. So I'll go from the beginning, okay?
Yep.
Or do you want me to actually review the goals, or?
Well, you can
What
talk
do you
about
want
them
me to
high
do?
level, sure.
So, yeah, I mean, basically we have 5 goals. And the goal, first one is to determine appropriate list of fiscal reports that enable the committee to monitor budget and operations, make recommendations to school committee for adoption. Goal number 2, to create in partnership with administration the next generation budget calendar in order to establish expectations for the budget development through the year, enhance visibility of the budget process, improve communications for the district member towns, and allow a continuous dialogue between administration and school committee regarding budget and operations. Goal 3, to create the next generation budget book using the MASBO/ASBO guidelines for best practices. Goal 4, to identify and recommend to the school committee the adoption of the new amended fiscal policies to enhance a best practice approach to the monitoring the budget and operations of the district finances, as well as recommendations to the school committee handbook. Goal 5 is to make a recommendation to the school committee regarding our OPEB obligations. So there's 3, 4, or 5 words that we need to strike from that.
Yeah.
And that's really it.
And so one thing I want to mention to you is on your 4th goal, the forensic audit, when that comes back, there will be several places in the audit where he's going to give us suggested changes to our policies to help support some of the best practices he's going to be implementing, or recommending that we implement.
So totally, and we had discussed, I mean, we had discussed initially also the MASBO findings had a whole series of other things that they had recommended regarding chains of custody, et cetera, you know, that we may want to look at. So it's a combination of those two will probably be some of the fertile ground that we'll be digging into.
Yes, and I think that the results of that audit will also help determine some of the reports that we're going to request.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
it might be that we're meeting tomorrow, but it might be that it's going to be a little while.
No,
before
that's why I
even
think we
have
got
our
to push
reports.
that way off, because I don't think we have all really gotten in the quicksand of the work that we need to do this year, and we do want to be there. All right. Well, I actually, if you feel like you can deliver on this, I think it looks. How do you feel? You're going to be working with these folks. How does Pat feel?
I think that we're fine. I don't think that we have any problems with any of this right
Awesome.
now.
Great. So, do you want to hold this? Do you want to move it?
Oh, we can move, I mean, as long as we strike on the adoption of a plan from goal number 5, then we could make a motion for the school committee to accept the NRSD Finance Subcommittee 2016-17 goals.
I think the subcommittee should vote it to accept them.
Oh, you haven't accepted these yet?
No, we have, but it's just,
We
I
have.
think that we leave it there. You know, the school committee has its goals. I don't know if you guys, do you guys always vote the subcommittee goals?
We did last year.
Really?
Yeah.
Because they feed into the school committee goals. If we don't want to vote them, we don't have to. Well, no, I think. Well, hey, as long
I
as
mean,
you guys.
we're the ones.
Because
that
we're
have
going to hold you to
Right.
it.
You know them, they're
Yep.
here. We've voted them, we've approved them, so that's our.
Excellent suggestion.
Oh,
I mean,
gosh.
we should know, the school committee in general should know, so that you can hold our feet to the fire when it comes time to say, you've done it.
Well, I suppose-
Yeah, because
What
if
have
you
been
fail,
doing?
then the entire committee fails.
Right. Me.
That is not going down good.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is conceivable that the school committee doesn't like some subcommittee's goal. And the method for the school committee to direct a subcommittee is to say, we don't want you to be doing X. And this is the way that you actually have unity or direction from a larger committee. If, for example, some subcommittee is wayward, we're not in that situation now, but it is a reasonable rationale to review the subcommittee's activities.
I think Dorothy would disagree. I do think Dorothy would say that the subcommittee goals need to be approved through the school committee because the subcommittee serves the school committee. No?
What does it hurt?
Yeah.
Because obviously they don't want us to vote on them.
Yeah.
So actually, I have a comment that I feel like we have work to do on the goals that they're not measurable right now. And it's healthy for us as a subcommittee to actually outline some of the details for this and with some perhaps speculative dates as to where we're going. And in that sense, I think this is a first draft and we agree on it. And we have, in my single opinion, I think we have some work to do to flesh out what our detailed effort is going to be. I don't know if my other committee members actually agree with that point of view.
So you want to hold off until we put in more guidelines?
Well, he's saying there's, like if you took a look at the timeline, the way that the school committee goals were built, there's action items, which those are your action items, but the timing of the delivery and how you're going to measure whether it's been successful or not.
You'd like to refer to the personnel subcommittee goals?
No, I'm actually looking at school committee goals that everybody.
No, I know, but I was looking at yours
But,
that are
yeah,
in the same format.
Kathy's pretty precise.
Okay.
Yeah. But, yeah, the timeline, because it'll actually help you too, because you can see if you've got a lot doing the same time frame.
You can adjust.
Right, that's actually my main point. It's
So-
helpful to us, the subcommittee, as well as the larger committee, to
Yeah.
be able to assess. So how did they do?
Well, even the OPEB one, I mean, you don't want to fail on the OPEB, but even if you just move forward a little bit, it's successful. I mean, it's
What's
just
that?
keeping it.
So maybe
That
you
last one
guys
we
can
had,
take
the
another look at that, and I think policy, if you could put some dates.
I mean, it seems a little grand.
Let's wait until we talk about policies and goals, and then we'll talk.
Well, that's
Oh,
what
so
we're
come up
going
with
to
a
do.
recommendation?
Yes, but we haven't gotten to
Oh.
it.
Yeah, no, we didn't really.
Okay, stop, we're it. It's my fault. We're all over the place tonight.
We are.
Alrighty then.
So we're just
Let's
gonna
just,
do
finance,
it.
why don't you take it back and just
More.
throw some dates on there that are attainable and measurable?
So as far as dates go, I just want clarification on that. Like, what are you talking about? Because I'm
So-
looking in here, and most of these are going to be.
So you've got a member of your
Year-long.
subcommittee who's making a suggestion, and I think that discussion should happen in finance, but let me throw
Sure,
something out
that's
just to
fine.
give you an idea.
But,
On goal number
looking for an
3, you've
example.
got your next generation in MASBO
Yep.
book. At what point would that be delivered? That's the metric, right? It
Okay.
would be delivered on X. It would be the next
Right.
generation. Maybe you're gonna suggest you add this section or that section to the MASBO book. I don't know, you'd have to work with Pat and decide what that is, but I don't think this has to be like a deep dive into it. It's just putting some expectations, like when, that's all.
And if
No?
you miss it, it's okay, because there might be reasons. for
Right,
it.
so the
Yeah.
time, because I think
Requirements.
each one, as far as it's, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just asking for the school committee's opinion on this. If we look at these goals, we'll be able to tell whether they were done or not. Either you've created a next generation budget book or you haven't.
So just put a date there. You're
I
gonna
think
have it
mostly it's
by
for
May.
us.
Okay,
That's all.
okay.
And I have a question on the flow chart that Kathy created, is that still valid?
No.
No, that was done in
No,
Visio. We're
points.
not gonna talk about that now. We're moving on. You can talk to finance about it afterwards, because we gotta get going. Policy.
So, initially these were our 4 goals. I think actually we might have 5. So that's one thing the policy subcommittee will discuss. Just in addition to what the policy committee does its regular duties. We've decided to add to the school committee operating norms, get that through the school committee. We can kind of check that one up. Because the new handbook will be coming out, we've decided to look over all of the policies related to school committee operation and make sure they are relevant and up to date. Work closely with MASC to support the efforts in updating the district's entire policy manual. Sponsor, produce, and report out on a biannual staff climate survey. And then probably add, review the policy manual and see currently what policies require report outs.
Oh, so you'll just put some dates on there.
I think these were lifted directly from our minutes, so,
So
yeah.
wait, okay. So there's a theme, so, yeah, if you could put target dates just by the item. I don't think you have to go crazy on it. But, like the manual is gonna be, our first pass at it'll be done at the end of the year, right? Because it's gonna take a while. The survey, the surveys, we did it last time, March, April? Around the MCAS time, so the teachers could take it. So that's that date. But you did all that. Okay. Personnel. Wow. This is a draft, and we actually know that we've got to add another goal on here. Oh no, actually she did. She just did. But the subcommittee hasn't voted this. We haven't agreed to it and voted it. But basically, our goals are to work with the superintendent and the school committee to establish the superintendent evaluation process, which is going really well this year. Thank you, Superintendent Clenchey. Don't you think, Lynn?
Oh, yeah. Much easier.
I mean, it's just, it's like there are goals, and the goals, it's going really well. So that's our first goal, and there's quite a few pieces of that. Our second goal is to work with the superintendent to understand what the personnel needs are so that we can, whether it's job descriptions that need to be revised or changed, or whether it's salary ranges that, need to be established with the administration, taking their direction. Those are the things that we need to do there. And then the manual, the school committee manual, which is going to be a huge effort, but necessary, is the third goal. So we still have to vote on these, but just so you guys can see what our draft looks like too. All right. People are not happy tonight. Okay. So I think we're going to move this reports way out, Alita, to let's see, maybe like late January or mid-late December, early January, because we've only got one meeting in November.
For what?
We have one school.
But no, I mean, what's
Are you going to be ready?
for the list of reports that we're going to be requesting? Okay, so we're probably going to have some prior to that.
All right, so we'll take it offline, because I mean, I'm hearing
Right.
we're not ready, we don't know, we're not sure, and I'm hearing, well, we are ready,
Well, because this is I just want to be, not to create further confusion, but because this is a goal of ours, we're going to have to identify, we're going to have to get the forensic report back to find out what reports, like Jennifer was saying.
and that won't happen for at least
Right,
another
so
month.
that's going to get pushed out. There are some things that we know right now, and we have to sort of flesh those out. So it's going to be, work in progress as far as, we may be able to give you a handful here and then have to get another handful here. But the ones that we know now, we may actually be looking to get prior to January. Do you follow what I'm saying?
So why don't you
Because some of them will be
guys,
budget related.
so and I think finance is gonna ask for the vast majority of these reports, so why don't you guys get together, figure it out, and then bring it back to the school
Perfect.
committee?
Thank you.
Does that work?
Yeah, totally.
But we will be challenging some of them too,
Sure.
so just don't be
We fully expect that.
surprised. All right, so I guess we're gonna move the subcommittee goals out again to the 7th or the 9th meeting.
It'll be easier next year.
I know, we're just trying to put some structure, so you guys understand that the whole goal of this is just to put some structure in place that allows people to anticipate what is the work that the school committee is doing, what are you doing? And that's what the goal of the goals are. Okay, moving on. And now we're really behind, but feasibility study report out. So Mark, I know you have 10 minutes here. Do what you can.
Okay. I'll try to be brief and make room for.
So let me do a quick
conversation.
setup for you. So the goal of this, I'm gonna stop using that word tonight. So the point of this agenda item was to understand what a feasibility study is, what it gives us, the value of it, and a recommendation or a point of view around it.
So the thing I am handing out is partially what I said orally at the last meeting, sort of trying to outline the key topics. So I wrote this up to sort of focus on the fact that we have some decisions to make. And in brief, we have reports that came to us from the task force. We know something about the population or projection on the population. There's a particular topic that the task force declined to investigate, which is the operations and curriculum of the school. That, of course, these affect the facilities. And so that leads to what should we do about the facilities issues that the task force came up with. This, four leading opportunities, and there are perhaps others. Maintain the building in its current form and deal with infrastructure as issues as they arise, perhaps with a plan. Perhaps modify the building without changing the exterior envelope. Interior renovations as appropriate. Perhaps maybe take a look at a courtyard area. Possibly have a feasibility study that we would fund 100% to guide us in that effort. And then continuing dealing with infrastructure items as they arise or on our schedule. A third major area of decision could be deal with some of our classroom issues by installing temporary classrooms for some number of years and allow the demographic trends to become clearer, taking the opportunity to not necessarily rush into a big project. There again, perhaps considering infill in the courtyard areas. Feasibility study probably is useful there to make sure we're doing the right things in a short run. Continue to deal with infrastructure items on a schedule. And then recognizing that this is a delay of a perhaps larger decision. And then the D item is decide to issue a statement of interest to the MSBA and describe in some general detail how our facility impairs our operations. State supports that somewhere in the vicinity of 35 to 40%, depending on what's eligible. A thorough feasibility effort would be required, and the MSBA has a particular process for that. And the range of that could be somewhere between 500,000 to 1.2 million, depending on the scope of that feasibility issue, or feasibility topics that are covered. And it turns out that the main areas of expansion of the cost are, if you have lots of choices, then it's necessary for professionals to sort of explore those choices well enough so that the towns and the community can figure out what the likely costs and benefits are of those choices. So many choices to be explored, higher cost. Fewer choices, lower cost, and it's more about having an assessment of your building. And then just as a reminder, it's conceivable we could sign a statement of interest and bow out sometime perhaps early on, perhaps only after one or two of the phases, or perhaps maybe even after the feasibility stage, which is stage 4. So that there are continuing choices even when you're inside the MSBA process. So that's sort of the big picture decisions and big choices. And then what you get for a feasibility study, whether it's small because we're paying for it for a particular purpose in a more focused attempt, or large in the sense of following the MSBA guidelines, is that you get an assessment of your current systems of your building. So it's like your size, your structure, how are your infrastructure doing, whether it's electric, heat, and so forth. How's your energy systems going? Do you have hazardous materials that ought to be attended to as long as you're renovating or looking at your stuff? And various issues that may be important to consider when you're taking a look at renovate or revise your building, or perhaps build fresh. Maybe this will motivate one decision or another based on the discoveries that you find. So that's sort of the very brief background on what you get for a feasibility study. You get enough information so that you have both information about your building structure. We've only looked at the operations of our building, and also you get information about what some of your choices might be, so you can actually figure out if you can focus on one choice will lead to the next stage in the MSBA process. And when you get to the feasibility stage, it's actually more than a year in from your time that you issue a letter to the MSBA that you to set up various committees and go through various processes and the MSBA has to decide, yes, we think your initial inquiry is worthy of further investigation. So that's as brief as I can surveying that, and I welcome questions or
No,
direction.
that's great. I think we need to hear from Jennifer and Lynn because they've both been through something similar.
Okay, so my initial question with this is, do you envision the limited feasibility studies being part of the district budget? The district would undertake it? Because if the overall big-scale feasibility study is funded by the towns. So you have to go to town meeting, you have to get, it's a capital project,
Right.
it's a capital improvement. Are you envisioning if the smaller scale one, we would find it in the school budget? Or the similar?
I don't have an opinion,
Okay,
and I think
all right.
that's a discussable thing to figure out. And it could be, the small scale one may be larger than small scale.
Right. The benefit of the MSBA process is it's very clear. It tells us what we need to do, when we need to do it, and how we need to do it, which is helpful rather than just
Trying to figure it out
ourselves. My only concern is that if you do a feasibility study and spend $1 million, it's not valid forever. So if you then decide that you're pulling out, or it's not the direction you're gonna go, you've now have spent $1 million that you're gonna have to re-spend if you re-enter the pipeline in a period of time. The MSBA will take a feasibility study for a period of time, but it's not endless. So I think before we even start to go down that road, we have a much clearer view of how far down that road we really think we need to go. And I think that, I think the superintendent, who's just getting her hands on what the high school is and the problems there and the things that are happening there, I think to start that process now would be premature, because I think we need to have much more input from her.
So that's interesting, because I talked to Superintendent Clenchey on the way to the meeting, and I said to her, we're gonna need you to weigh in on this, but I'm not gonna call you out because we haven't given her the opportunity to sit back and reflect and make phone calls that she may want to make. So I absolutely agree with you that we need to hear from the
And
superintendent.
especially if we go through that process, the superintendent becomes such a critical part of a new building project, of any renovation, any process. She's gonna have to be behind it and advocate for it,
and all that being said, I do want to advocate for the fact that, this is such a big discussion, because there have been school committees that we've been on before this particular school committee. It's just massive, and I think we need to stop pushing it off and make a decision. We're either going to move or we're not going to move. But I think it's kind of like we know it's out there, it's the elephant in the room, it's out there. And I think we need to make we need to make some decision. We need some guidance. There was a group of people that did a fabulous job. They did a ton of work, but none of them are the experts that could tell us.
Right.
I don't think so, but I don't know. We may not even be we may be looking at something where they say, well, we've got a couple of different programs that are smaller programs that your school would really benefit from versus this, complete rebuild. But we just don't know. And I think because I don't want us to swirl and create more groups and committees where we're all sitting around talking and bringing people in, but we're not the experts. So it's either move. My mother used to use a different phrase. We either move or not move. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. So Jennifer, I'm with you on that. And I think that if you could give it some thought.
Yeah. And I had suggested to Chair Moscow too that I'd like to reach out to MSBA on this very thing. I will tell you though, I mean, a couple of quick, and first of all, thank you very much for respecting the time. And when you're right, I mean, you're just in the midst of dealing with so much. So, for example, when you're looking at on my report tonight, I was going to just talk briefly about the fact that I'm now going in depth in each of our schools, and including the drive around the land, for example. So, you know, I spent probably 2.5 hours. I want to say maybe last Friday, the Friday before, just on the back fields of the high school. And there are a lot of questions you have, like when you're sitting there and you realize how much has been compacted into this very small space. It's problematic. Then you go into the gyms, and I was suggesting this as well, and you know there's not proper space for storage at all, like at all. And and you watch with how the staff is dealing with all of this, and you know, it just raises questions. And what I liked about what you've put here, you know, Mr. Jones, I think the bottom line is you do, and we have this discussion all the time. Do we put more money into this building? Like, I mean, we're having those discussions almost daily. You know, their floors, for example, a number of the floors that are in horrible shape. Do we just rip them up now and lay down new floors? Is that what we do, or do we wait for another decision? Or every time I turn around right now, we're looking to try to make decisions on that high school. And it's not just paint and cosmetics, it's bigger than that. You know, so to be honest with you, the building itself is not in horrible shape. It's you know, but I do wonder if, you know, I said the other day, I do think our kids deserve something different. You know, I'm not being negative to the building at all, and if we whatever we decide, I'm going to be respectful of whatever decision it is. Just FYI too, MSBA just did a walkthrough of all of it. They do this every 5 years, and Pat, feel free to join in if you want to join into this discussion. About every 5 years, they sweep through the state and they take a look at everything in all of your buildings, and we just did that this week, right? I think it was
Right.
a two-day
They look at your
affair.
acreage, the square footage of the classrooms.
In the physical buildings?
Physically,
Yeah.
Oh,
and
what, do they have any
boilers.
feedback, like you need to do something, or you're good?
Actually, that's exactly where I was going to go. Actually,
The age of the boiler, what kind of air conditioning or not that you have in each building. And there are a lot of questions, you know, electrical, all of those types of components of the building.
And if you've ever seen one of these reports, they're very, very extensive. And when they're done, they go online and you can tap in. So, for example, in a district where we needed a new boiler system, when a new MSBA grant process came out, we were actually able to use that data from when they had come through one of these 5-year cycles like they've gone through right now, which we'll end up doing the same thing with whatever we do with this. We'll refer back to that and say, well, when you came through in 2016, you will have noted X, Y, and Z, and you put that in. And what's really nice about that, and the situation I'm talking about, is they came back and said, actually, yes, you've outlived your boiler by like probably 5 to 10 years. So you're absolutely right. You're first to, in fact, we were the very first school district to get money on that particular program. And in part, it was because of this sweep through the Commonwealth. So they've just done that. It's a third party that does it, that MSBA puts out to it. And Jeff was heavily involved, you were heavily involved, every one of our principals was heavily involved. So that just went down this week. Now it'll take some time, of course, but it will also ultimately play a part in this, because they will refer back to the data that they just got out of this visit.
And so what is it, 6 months, 9 months, do we know? A year?
No, it's not a year. No, I would suspect the 6 to 9 month window is probably exactly what you're looking at.
So I wonder if they time that with their deadline for SOI acceptance.
No,
submission.
I don't think, I would be suspect that they do, to be
I think it's
honest
not
with
just
you.
a 5-year schedule.
It's just a regular, every 5 years this happens.
And they look at everything. They look at technology, you know, if you have, what the ratio is student to device, collaborative spaces, how many classrooms are dedicated to special ed.
I really want to hear what they have to say.
It's really
It's very
pretty
in-depth.
involved.
So do we have the report from 5 years ago?
You should be able to go online and
It should be on
see
there.
where.
It's just online.
Yeah,
It's
I
probably
think that you should be able to get.
Is it on the
get easy access.
MSBA?
Yeah, I would think that
Okay.
the MSBA, so
Well,
you might wanna
that's
go on there and
something
take a
I
look
wanna
at
look
it.
at too,
Yeah.
right?
And if you have problems, if you can't find it, then I'm sure that we can probably gain access to it. But it's a huge document because it lists every school in every district across the Commonwealth.
Okay. Neil?
So that seems like it's huge value right there for
Right.
more the decision-making process. But historically, to put things in context, when we did the renovation on the high school, was that like 20 years ago,
10.
roughly 10 years ago? Right.
2000-ish.
2000-ish. Was that done through the MSBA?
It's before the current MSBA existed.
The original.
It's called SBA.
SBA.
SBA. And then did we went through the entire project with them? Or did we pull it and do it on our own
It
and
was
then?
no,
I'm
I
gonna put-
understand it was an ad renovation and school started and they threw them out. They never finished.
Oh.
But we paid them for it.
But the quotations, we value engineered a lot of the stuff at that point, no?
I don't believe so.
Because
They
it
just
seems that
never
we've been
finished.
chasing after some things that weren't completed and weren't done. Where I'm going with this is, I'm trying to understand whether MSBA being in there and overseeing the thing, whether there's value in that, or whether we handled the project on ourselves, if we handled
Well,
this.
they give us money.
Well, if we handled
No,
this
there's a lot
previous
more oversight.
project that came in.
There's a lot
There's a
more
lot more
oversight.
oversight. They don't,
But that's what I'm saying, did we not have the oversight in the
didn't have it.
renovation?
When-
Whole
when
Okay.
different
MSBA
organization
started-
Right.
without
There's a
proper.
total-
With you, so that we didn't get the oversight, and we've been
Yeah,
chasing,
look.
and this is my point
Just
that I'm
look at
getting
Jim
at, we've
Miller.
been chasing after this for 10 years, still the sprinkler system last year, right? That were not properly working, that were paid for, and we couldn't go
But
back.
just to be clear, that what you're talking about has nothing to do with the current organization.
I know that.
Yeah.
Then that's my point, is that because there's strict observation and
Right.
there's strict oversight on this now, does it alleviate some of the problems and headaches that, let's say, that we've gone through as a district previously because we didn't have the strict oversight and so forth?
you mean as far as the systems being completed and working?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
because
yes.
yes, there's a lot more commissioning.
Do you know what I'm saying? So if we're handling this outside, this has something to do with
I
everything.
don't know where we're going here. Where are we going?
They also.
Well, I think
offer
part of the
Southwest
process
members.
when you're trying to figure out, do you bring in, because Mark's provided the graph here, right? So if we're trying to figure out, do we handle this ourselves and tell the MSBA, no, thank you?
I think that's.
There's a price that we have to pay for that is where I'm going, because we're not gonna have the same sort of
Right,
oversight.
and I don't even think that conversation should be, I think what Mark did was say, here's some options to think about, but I don't even think, we're not ready to have that particular conversation yet until we hear from you.
But even
right?
now, even projects that towns, districts do independently are much more structured. You have to have project managers, they have to be approved. I mean, it's the bid process, all of that is much more structured, even if you do it yourself, than it was when the high school was done. So,
A lot of paperwork now.
yeah.
Yeah, I think, I know what you're saying.
Do
It's-
do you know where I'm going?
You're saying it's not what it used to be. This isn't your father's Oldsmobile.
Well,
It's a
I'm
much
kind of saying that, or I'm saying
better
that it may
model.
actually, on paper, it may look like it costs a little bit more to go, let's say, the MSBA route versus do it on your own, but in the reality, the dollars that you may end up spending could be a lot more if you're doing it on your own and run into the problems that we
Oh,
run
well,
into.
we don't get any,
But
we don't
see,
get any
but
reimbursement
As
either.
I said,
Well, I
the
get that.
a project on your own is not, also is not your father's Oldsmobile. It's not a project that you could do, what you could have done 10 years ago, they won't let you get away with now even on your own.
Okay.
So.
That's good. That's good.
Who's the they? Is that just the?
It's the state
the state
regulations, state guidelines for any kind of public.
So different statutes,
Stat-
regs, perhaps as well as the Department of
As
Education.
soon as you write school on it.
Yeah, I don't know if
Right
even
now.
necessarily the Department of Elementary and Secondary
Yeah.
Education, it's more MSBA, to be honest with you.
But it's also, I know that with the Prescott building in Lancaster, that's a public building, but
Yeah.
it's not a school anymore. But the state has much stricter guidelines on the process, even though there's no technically state money going into it, but you need to have a project manager on site, you need to have, so it's
So
just,
just
it's
as a municipal
yes,
project.
there's just, the state is, because of problems that happen.
Well, that's good.
Because of
It's still
Newton
public
North,
money.
because it's still public money.
It's public money.
Okay. It's good.
I would absolutely agree with that.
All right, so, I don't know that we have more, Lynn.
Just one more. You were going to approach Perry about programming, scheduling, and repurposing. So is that ongoing?
We've had, yes,
Okay.
I would say yes. We've actually, it's preliminary. I don't know that it was particularly fruitful to bring to you tonight, but have we started that discussion? Yes, we have.
Well, I know that, I'm noticing that there's a, I don't want to say lack of direction, not from you, but this doesn't seem to have been a plan before. It just seems to be a mishmash. And things are starting to coagulate, they're just not quite there yet, as far as having a direction to go in. Like because we talked about programming, scheduling, and repurposing, and the fact that we talked to them and it's preliminary makes sense based on what I've been seeing. So
What were you looking for specifically to get out of it?
well, I think for me, a feasibility study, if you're going to do like programming, scheduling, and repurposing, that's not going to come into the feasibility study at all. So if any of these are going to help alleviate some of the pressures up at the high school as far as the space needs committee or whatever's going on, the feasibility is not going to.
But doesn't,
any of this.
I mean, if we went off and did a feasibility study on our own, we would want to know, is the curriculum and the programming changing that's going to impact the building, right?
Yeah. See, what I was talking to him about too was class sizes, the infamous class size discussion. To be honest with you, I mean, those are the kinds of conversations that we've started. So, I think it's a lot broader than just being able to do something and bring it to the next meeting and say we've done this.
Yeah.
So I liked your word ongoing because that's exactly how I see it. Were you looking to gain something specific out of it by now?
No.
Okay, I just want
No,
to be sure.
I just didn't know if you had started.
Yes. Did you just breathe? So, what are your thoughts, Mark, now that you've heard the conversation?
I think the challenge is figuring out what information we need to decide and figuring out when we're going to decide various things. I'm open to suggestion on the process for all of us to figure out, to generate consensus so that we all are aligned and have agreement about where we ought to go and being able to bring that consensus to the towns.
So I think an immediate next step would be to ask the superintendent to make some phone calls. She's been down this road from her perspective. She's seen how it works. We've got Jennifer and Lynn who work with MSBA. Mark has been on the Space Study Task Force, and Neil spends his life doing this kind of stuff. So I think we have people who are sitting around the table that have some knowledge, but we don't understand how it looks from your lens, and I think that's what we need to know.
So I think one of the first things I want to do is give them a quick call to just for some general conversation, to see where they're at with all of this. And I guess the other question I have too is, if we do an SOI, how does that queue us up? Like what type of time weight is out there? I don't know how the flow of money is coming through MSBA right now. I think there are a lot of things. Are there other districts in worse condition than ours, for example, that we already know that there's, 30 schools ahead of us? There are a lot of things that you're just going to want to have some general knowledge on. That's not the only bucket that you look at, but that's a bucket of information you're going to want to know. And I guess the other thing, if you're going to start looking at specifics, then have you thought about, honestly, we thought about that feasibility study? And I say that rhetorically because one of the questions I'm going to ask of MSBA is exactly what type of feasibility study do you need? Now, again, in past experience, if you're doing a feasibility study, they're not cheap, exactly as you're saying right here, right? But you need that in order to go to that next step. So, that feasibility study, if you're serious, at some point in time, it's got to come into play in some form or another.
Well, and I think if you get your information, you bring it back, we have more discussion, and we decide we do want to move forward with the feasibility study, that's something that's going to have to go to each of our member towns.
That's exactly right.
Which
There's going to be
means
a whole process here.
Right, which means we need to get our ducks in a row to understand what is it that we're asking for, what are we going to get out of it, and then be able to get up in front of our communities and explain it and articulate it and the value of it.
I also know that they have been reducing their reimbursement rates significantly. I mean, Minuteman was at 44, now I think it's 32. So, you know, just what do they anticipate? I mean, you know, if there's not the money there, then they're not gonna, so are they seeing continuing reductions in that too? I mean,
Right, and that's the kind of information that I've seen this other bucket that you're going to want of information that you're going to want to look at beyond what you think your needs are.
Right. But
That's the key, and that's the thing that scares me about MSBA feasibility study, because you put that money into it, and they may come back and they may say, here's what we think. We think that you should be building a building for 800 students, not what we're projecting, and we're not going to fund it
That's
a
what
bit
they
beyond.
did to Minuteman.
So
That's
I
what they did
think
to
we
Minuteman.
also have to have, right, and that's what I'm hearing more and more. And then I'm also hearing schools, is it Lexington or Concord? Who built the school somewhere in the...
Concord, Carlisle.
And they already have units out there behind the
I
brand
know
new
that,
building,
no, well,
right?
that was Concord, that's their elementary
Okay, but-
schools, but because it was within Concord, it was not an MSBA problem, it was within Concord, they built a massive rental property to cover their 40B liability, and they did, but they did not anticipate that number of students would be moving into the rental properties, so.
So they're brand new school.
So their brand new
has-
schools
yeah.
now have
So,
modular classrooms.
And that's the point. So if MSBA comes back and says 800 students, you've now paid all that money for that feasibility study, and now do you finish with this? I guess where I'm going with this is, I think we have to have perspective, like, what do we expect to get out of that feasibility study?
Well,
Because if they come back with 800,
no, and I think
are we
your
gonna say
point
okay?
is well taken, but the feasibility study isn't for the MSBA alone. It tells us what our options are.
Right.
Right? So I don't think it's throwaway money if we did do a feasibility study and then the member towns sit back and have a discussion and say, I don't think we want to go with MSBA because they said they would only do this for us, but we really want to do that. But that means the price tag is bigger. So this is the reason this hasn't been addressed before, right? Because it's big and it's uncomfortable, and we're talking about massive amounts of, I hate to say it, money, but we're also talking about, you know, you kind of got to weigh that with, your students deserve better, your towns deserve better, and frankly, you know, we haven't even touched on if we've got gym floors that look like they're ratty and they're not working, and maybe there are short-term things we have. I mean, this is just huge. That's why I think let's one step at a time to.
So for example, one of the reasons I was in the gyms the other day is, and this is kind of giving you I guess a flavor of how we're looking at things. We're looking at potentially putting new lighting in the older gym, but in part that's because we latched onto some grants that we think we can do, and we can pull this all together. That makes sense for us, as opposed to saying, do we rip up all of this new floor, and do you know what I mean? Like, we're just kind of sitting back, and I think we're being really thoughtful in our decisions right now as to what type of money we put into that building. But you know, there are other things too, like, and when I really was cautious, and even knowing in my own mind here to say, do I want to make that comment? Because you know, what do our kids deserve? And that's not being negative to the building that's in place right now. So I really want to stress that. But you know, for example, so like when you take a look at the weight room, and I'm just going to focus on the gym for a minute, the weight room, right, which is the caged area, right, that's built on. And then when you take a look at how they store things, and it's duct tape around, like an area that's duct taped there, and you know, it's just that the kids are told you can't cross over into this side of the duct tape. And then you look at the scoreboard, for example, that people try to avoid, but it's out in the open because there's nowhere to put it, and hopefully nobody runs into it by accident. You know, like, it's those kinds of things that you look at and say, can we do? And I don't know what better looks like, but it does have you start thinking about those kinds of things. So right now, I mean, I'm not saying that we're not putting money into the school. We clearly are, you know, but we're being thoughtful about what type of money is going in there. If we're able to get a hold of grants and such, that's a no-brainer. We're definitely doing that. Otherwise, we're just being cautious. moving forward right now. Lynn?
I'm just wondering, do we know why the percentage from MSBA is dropping at the rate that it's dropping? I mean, what are they working
Their
towards?
funding is dropping.
I was gonna say, I think it's directly linked to the flow of funds.
Right. No, the state keeps dropping its budget. I mean, you got less money, and there's a lot of projects out there.
That's exactly right. And if you think about it, there are a lot of buildings that are at the same age as ours is. And that's why I say, I think that there are other things to consider in this other bucket that I'm talking about, not just Nashoba needs, but how that links to this.
But are they gonna get to a certain point where they aren't going to be giving out any money?
No, they've dedicated
Oh, that's an
sales
incentive
tax.
for school, for districts to, how could they say no?
There's a dedicated
I
revenue
mean, it's getting
for them.
Yeah.
pretty low where it's actually the hassle and the, I'm just wondering, what are they going towards?
And there's that, and this is gonna sound doom and gloom, and it's not meant to, but then you also have a plethora of buildings and a plethora of work that still needs to be done, you
Right.
know, so how are they going, I mean, that's not for us to say sitting around this table.
Because the MSBA is growing, right? I mean, as a,
What, okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all
I'm
right,
looking
but I
up.
just.
So we'll
I
wait
just-
to hear back.
I wanna
Yeah.
hear back
All right.
from, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so at least we have our next steps. We don't have answers, but it's gonna take a while to get there, and uncomfortable as it is, we have to tackle it. Subcommittee reports. Neil?
So we actually didn't have a meeting this past week.
Okay.
We're having one tomorrow and the following week, so we'll have a double
Doubleheader,
report,
okay, thank you. Personnel, we reviewed, you're gonna have to help me out. We reviewed the goals, we gotta go back around and do that, and then we talked with Superintendent Clenchey about, some positions that you
Yeah, some
are-
possible positions. One of the things I'm working on right now is the sheer amount of money that was put into overtime last year was enormous. Now, it looks like we also did a check back for the last 3 to 5 years to see was that an anomaly or was that in line with what's happened, so that we try very hard to be thoughtful in whatever we bring forward. So we took a look at that particular, there's one particular line there. There was another secondary line that we also brought into play, and then we started thinking about, is this making sense to continue forward in the same pattern that we did in the last 2 to 3 years? And to us, it doesn't make sense. So that's one piece of the story. The other piece of the story is the whole notion, I think I brought this up once before, of how we're deploying custodians on a weekend. We've got a couple custodians that are split between our communities. And I'm not sure that I support what's been going on, and I'd like to change that practice. So when I presented it to our personnel subcommittee the other day, I thought we had really good discussion, and they kind of sent me off to do a little bit of rethinking. And so would that be fair to say? So,
Yeah.
So I think, we're gonna meet up again before we bring it forward, but just know that those were the 2 lines of thinking behind presenting this. It's just, the bucket of money is there anyway. I'm just not sure that we're using it wisely.
So really appreciate that. And then our friends in policy. Are you all set?
We did meet earlier today, to discuss our goals that you guys then got to see. And then discussed a few policies that will hopefully be on a future agenda, a lot of them including health and well-being. And that's about it.
Thank you. Collective bargaining, there is no report out. We can probably pull that off of the agenda going forward, and when we're ready, we'll throw it back on. Audit Advisory.
Audit Advisory hoped to meet yesterday, but 2 personal things happened for 2 of the members, and so there's not a quorum and did not meet, and we're attempting to reschedule.
Okay. Thank you. And so now we're on the superintendent's report, and we're actually not doing that bad for time. Thank you. So that's not to rush you.
Okay.
Take your time.
Okay.
Please.
So a couple of quick things. Emerson Boiler, you'll notice that you are sitting in a warm room this evening. And so we want to thank our good friends in Bolton for all of their support and hard work, and want to thank Don Lowe, Harold Smith. I mean, just a great team over there to work with. So we are thrilled that it's here, that it's in and working well. Facilities and maintenance update. I want to thank our facilities and grounds crew again for all of the work that they consistently do. I don't know if you may have noticed if you had to come around to the store here, I don't know, but a lot of work has been done to the landscaping area just as you're coming in, like into this area here. There's some nice tall grasses that have been planted, some nice rock that's been put in there. All of where the trees are, that's all been painted now. All the weeds were pulled. It just looks great down there. And that was our group that did that. We also have some new sod that's been laid at Center School, and that's to give our babies over there, the youngest of the preschool area and the kindergarten, our little people over there, some additional room to play. In the playground for them, it was just a lot of brush and and even though they kept it cut back and such, there really wasn't play area for them. And so they got out there. I don't know if you saw them. I think it was actually on Twitter, if you saw it at all. They were laying sod in the early morning, and so it was dark, and they were saying laying sod under the stars, and that's literally what it was. So if you go over to Center School right now and drive in there, you'll see it's all taped off, but it's going to look beautiful. So so that's happened as well. And of course, there's some additional lighting that's brand new here on this building here. I don't know if you would have noticed it, unless you were here at night in the last couple of, maybe the last week or so. We're still working on that lighting. It is incredibly bright, and we want to be thoughtful of our neighbors, out there, especially there are 3 homes there. So we've been having meetings, and in fact today we met with the chief, because of course it's a safety thing for us, right? And you'll notice a definite difference when you walk out of here this evening. So I was kind of teasing the chief about it when we were talking about it today in our meeting. I remember a night when he was here and our town administrator, Don Lowe, was here, and we were all walking out that night, like after school committee meeting, and I remember 2 of them going off this way, and the chief had gone to my left, and it felt like seconds, I lost complete sight of him because it was just so dark back there. That's not the case anymore. However, the lights are still pointed a little too up, and you'll notice that tonight. So we'll get the truck in and have them try to bring them all down. If that doesn't work, to kind of take some of the glare off for our neighbors, then we've got another idea of a piece that you can put on it to not only, kind of even direct it a little bit more, so to speak. So we're not worried about this side around, and it's just fabulous. And the back now is all lit, and that's just fabulous. So it's just this side here. We're just wanting to take a little bit more time and readjust them. Technology committee met yesterday for the first time, and they asked if I would, the folks who lead that group asked if I would sit in on it, and so I did. And I think we were looking at reestablishing the purpose and the expectations of that group, and I thought it was a very good meeting. I was very, very happy with the outcome with the folks that attended, so I want to thank everybody who was part and parcel of that. I put down ongoing meetings as another piece here. And so this is really just to let the school committee know, I have regular ongoing meetings with a couple of key subgroups. Of course, the town administrators, for the community purpose, the town administrators and I meet every Monday morning at 9:30 to 10:30, and that's ongoing. Lancaster and Bolton are always here, and Bill Wrigley, when he has the opportunity, he sometimes will call me or drop, like he dropped in this summertime thing, but Bolton and Lancaster are faithful every single Monday morning we meet. The chief and I meet on, I would say, somewhat of a regular basis, but it's always purposeful when something comes up. So he's terrific. We've got a great relationship with our police department. For principals, we meet basically every other week, but we have a small meeting one time, and we have a large group meeting at the next meeting, and that is absolutely ongoing. There's a nice rhythm and dynamic that you're starting to find because everybody knows that these meetings are regular and ongoing. Often what will come out of those meetings is topics for other separate meetings. For example, and the principals brought forward, they were concerned as we're looking forward to the next generation MCAS and accommodations. And they said, you know what, we would like a separate meeting just to talk about this with our director of pupil and personnel services and us, so that we can sit down and get a real handle on this. So I think that meeting is tomorrow, in fact, So they will come forward and say this is a meeting too big, but technology is another component. Where we've got a number of things, and we don't want to feel rushed in our regular meeting, so we set up separate meetings where we have just those topical meetings. So I just wanted to let you know that those are ongoing and working very well. If you aren't following us on Twitter, I just want to put that out there that we are doing that, at Nashoba RSD, and that runs on. If you haven't seen it, on the main page of the website, and it gives a chance to kind of see a little snippet into all of the different schools, and I try to be, as best I can, try to be equal parity, equal voice to all of the schools, and so that everybody's got kind of a piece of putting something on there, and it's really kind of neat. So when you do go onto our homepage and you kind of just get a flavor of what's going on in the district, so that's going very well. And my following is growing. I'd like to point that out. Yes. Not to my husband's level yet. I think he's about 600 right now, and I'm just this little itty bitty number, but. Evaluation follow-up, we as an administrative team decided at one of our last meetings that we wanted to meet, again, this is one of those things where we wanted to do some work on calibration around educator evaluation. And so we felt that we couldn't do it alone. So we are bringing in Dr. Sarah Jordan, and she actually, I didn't necessarily know specifically of her work, but I certainly know the work that her group does. And she belongs to one of the district assistance centers from the DECA. And she came and met with us at our last large group meeting, and everybody, when she left, said, yes, that's who we want. So we are setting up we're front-ending the meetings, 4 separate meetings, basically between now and Christmas, to help make sure that our principals and the assistant principals, anyone doing evaluations, is talking the same language, that we're calibrating appropriately. We'll be taking a look at videos and working through that. So we've got a whole process that we've developed, and we'll be starting that pretty much ASAP.
So can you stop for a second and just share, I don't know that everybody has, because I know in personnel we have a decent understanding of the necessity of this work, but the importance of the work. If you could just kind of help people understand what is the educator evaluator, because I don't know if people outside of us know what it is, why do we have to do it, and
so there are a couple of things into play, and I'd like you to know too that we're really examining this within the Nashoba Regional District quite in depth. When you talk about going in depth in finances, we're really going in depth right now with the educator evaluation. In fact, I was sharing a chart that we've been building the last probably month or so. Right now, conservatively speaking, and I mean conservatively speaking, Nashoba Regional School District is spending approximately 4,800 hours per school year on educator evaluation.
So give us an understanding of what that is relative.
Absolutely. So when we break that down, and at some point in time I'm going to bring this around the table so that you see it. We're not ready to put it up because it's really in draft form right now, but we've been working steadily on this. So that breaks down to, for example, formal observations, mini observations, meeting times, review of evidence, summative evaluations, formative evaluations, goal meetings, all of those things, because all of that happens, and it's all within timelines. And I'd like to point out too that amount of time is not really over a 12-month period, and nor does that timeline take into folks when you're dealing with folks on improvement plans, for example. So that's not in that number. That's just typical average, okay? So all of that happens within a side of basically a 9-month period, and truthfully, it's really more like an 8-month, 7.5 to 8 month. And if you think about the fact that you pull up the holidays and all that kind of other stuff, you're really looking at a very short window of time to get a lot of work done. Now, first, in the first place, it's mandated because we have to report it back out to the state, and so the state takes all that data. We do a transmission basically around July, and all of our information is downloaded into the department's portal. So that happens. It also has, we've got a number of different types of plans that teachers go on. They can go on directed or self-directed. If you're somebody new, you're going to get more evaluations than somebody who's more seasoned. There are 2-year plans. There are a lot of different things that are at play here. My concern right now in talking around the table is I'm concerned that this is not sustainable because it's so big, it's so enormous the way that it's currently laid out, and so I'm looking to try to streamline this in a way that makes sense and can still accomplish the work.
When we did the staff climate survey, this was a massive derailer for the work that the teachers are doing in the schools.
Yeah. We've got a number of areas within this, and you know, the good news is that some foundation has been laid in this. I feel like I'm able to now just go in and take a look at that foundation and work with, basically we've got an ad hoc committee now that is meeting on a regular basis, and I'm working with that group to say, okay, we've got the foundation, how can we tweak or refine this to make it a Nashoba brand that makes sense for our staff? And so that's really what we're doing, is looking at tweaking the current process.
Great, thank you.
The only other thing I'd report out is that I'm thinking that within either the next meeting or the meeting thereafter, the Emergency Response Task Force group that actually was listed on here but we didn't report on, they have come forward with 4 recommendations, and at some point in time I would like to bring those 4 recommendations to the school committee to say, this is what we're looking at. Some of this is very doable, maybe 1 or 2 items might not be, but here's what we'd like to do with it. So I want to thank everybody who was involved with that group. You know, that involved all of the 3 communities, it involved our police, it involved a number of some of our fire folks. So it was a really good representation, and I think that they've worked really, really hard. And now it's our job to take a look at it and say, okay, so where do we go with these recommendations? And that's it for my report.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
So the Emergency Response Task Force meets on the 14th of November.
Okay.
So that's why no report out from me.
That makes sense. That
But
makes sense.
If we want to wait and do it at the meeting after that, I would have some input as well.
That would be great. So we'll put that down then, Alita, for the meeting thereafter then.
So I'm gonna, does anyone have any correspondence? Or you would have sent it to Alita, right? And the consent agenda, unless there's an issue, the meeting minutes of just October 12th. We had to revise the meeting minutes of 9/28, the revisions in the packet. And the October 28th warrants, the finance, are you good with the warrants? So then we'll assume that those are all approved unless someone has an issue. And then, so that, I want to jump back to what you just finished saying, because now we got to talk about items for the next school committee meeting. Our next meeting is November 9th. We only have 1 meeting in November. So I'm going to be talking to Superintendent Clenchey and see if we might be able to try to find another way to slot a meeting in. Certainly it's not going to happen the week of Thanksgiving, maybe the following week, maybe the 30th. So just put that in the back of your heads, because
Why?
Why?
Yeah. Is it just, is there a lot to do, or is there something going on?
I think there's a lot to do. I'm not sure. I did talk with John Sullivan, and the forensic audit he thinks he may be ready in a month. So I'm assuming that if I can give him November 30th, maybe I can force him into November 30th. But if we do, I'd like to devote, so there's just too many questions, and I'm just telling you more than we can make a decision on now, but I'd like to devote the majority, if not an entire meeting, to the audit. So just FYI on that one. And then the items for next agenda. So if you have them, give them to me. If you think of them, please send them to me, because generally I think everyone's like, yeah, I'm good. But if you have something to add, let me know right now. I know that we're going to go back around to the subcommittee goals.
And the
And
reports.
Neil's gonna have his reports, possibly for finance? I'm not gonna go there. I thought you said you would. We're not gonna go there. Let's keep going, Nicole. We're not gonna go there. The school committee manual outline draft will be presented. And I think we have a report out on athletics. Is that right, Leader? And then if you have anything to add, I'm sure you'll let me know.
I move we adjourn.
Pardon? You move, we adjourn. We're only 15 minutes late. Thank you. Do I have a second?
A second.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you so much for your help.